We spend 1/3 of our lives asleep. We need to focus on how we can optimize that time so that we can recover to our absolute best. Just like we spend time researching nutrition, positive mindset, habits, strength training, recovery, all those different factors. Now we're gonna dive a little bit deeper into how we can optimize our sleep, and we're gonna start right now. So what is it good for, and what are the sleep stages that we work through as we're trying to recover? Proper sleep can help us with neural maturation, which is just learning through different processes in different chunks in different sequences. It can also help us with our cognition. Okay, so if we can get really good quality sleep, it's gonna help our brain fire on all cylinders. Great sleep can facilitate better learning and optimize your memory so that you actually have a better memory. You remember things a little bit better because while you're sleeping, your brain can work through different synapses and recognize what information might be important and what information might not be as important. Sleep can also help with our cognition to make better decisions depending upon what's going on in our lives. It can also improve the clearance of metabolic waste. So these are byproducts that are created in our awake brain that actually end up being wiped out as we're sleeping. While we're sleeping, there's also going to be a conservation of metabolic energy. So we're not using as much energy while we're asleep because we're not awake. We're not doing high demand tasks. We're just chilling. We're just laying there, sleeping and recovering. And that takes us into the 5 stages of sleep. And these are gonna be broken down into the phases of non-REM sleep and REM sleep. And these are controlled by various organs, not by Michael Stipe from REM. So what organs control sleep? We're gonna cover this in 30 seconds as quickly as possible, so you gotta stay tuned. First, the suprachiasmatic nucleus. That's going to establish this circadian rhythm, and that's gonna be triggered by sunlight. Second, the hypothalamus. That's where we're gonna feel that sleep onset. We're gonna feel our body start to get a little bit heavier, and we're gonna slowly veer off into sleep. Third, the pons is another organ that controls sleep. This is going to be what initiates REM. Fourth, the hippocampus. That's gonna be where our memory is stored inside of our dreams and how we actually recognize what happened when we were dreaming. Fifth, the amygdala. It does a lot of different factors, but it also plays a major role in the emotions that you're feeling while you're dreaming. And then finally, the reticular formation. That's gonna be responsible for us getting out of sleep and starting to wake up. So it comes down to organ function inside of the preoptic area, the brainstem, the hypothalamus, and how everything integrates with these organs, and then the specific hormones that those organs will release to bring us into sleep, to go through those different phases, and to even pull us out of sleep. So what about those stages? If we can break down each specific stage and then recognize what do those stages do for your health, and then how your body is actually acting in those stages based off of brain waves, based off of eye movement, and based off of muscle tone. Remember, we're talking about non-REM and REM type sleep. That reminds me of our phases inside of our app, Peak Strength. You know, exposure phase, comprehension phase, ascension phase, summit phase, realization phase. Sort of, but we have the wake alert phase first. This happens when we're awake in bed and our brain waves start to be alpha waves and we start to feel a little disconnected to reality. Some people can be less attentive when they get in the gym. They don't have a program that they can focus on. They start to lose focus because they really don't even know what they should be doing and they don't have a specific goal. Right, so this is when we're going into light sleep. This is when our body's really starting to feel heavy. Think about those times you've been startled really quickly. You've had that knee-jerk reaction. That's going to occur during light sleep. I've really never had that jerk reaction. I use Peak Strength for my training, and inside Peak Strength, we have an athlete day. And athlete day helps us be a little bit more athletic and teaches us how we can absorb energy and reuse that to be as explosive as possible. Okay, so light sleep happens for about 5 minutes, and it's gonna take up about 5% of our total sleep time. This is when our brain is starting to drift away from those alpha waves, and we're really starting to gradually lose that muscle tone. It's like our body has its own rest timer, sort of like the rest timer that we have in Peak Strength to help you be more accountable so that you can stay focused on each specific exercise and you know exactly how much time you need in between those movements. Okay, so that takes us to deeper sleep. This is when our body's really starting to lower its body temperature. This is when our heart rate is really starting to drop and our respiratory rate is also starting to drop and eye movement stops happening. But the main part here is that during this phase of sleep, we start to have brain waves known as sleep spindles. And sleep spindles are a really important concept to recognize for how our brain recovers and functions during the sleep patterns. Like muscle spindles, but for sleep? No. Muscle spindles are used in the body to gauge how much force is actually needed when doing an exercise or doing a movement. Sleep spindles, like I mentioned, are actually a type of brain wave that play a huge role in recovery of your brain and your memory. Okay, but muscle spindles do play a major role in your overall strength and performance. If you want to increase your strength and performance, make sure you head over to peakstrength.app, the Google Play Store, or the Apple App Store to pick up Peak Strength for 7 free days of strength training. Thank God that dude stopped talking. Now we're going to get into deeper sleep a little bit deeper. And sometimes this is known as your core sleep. This is when the body temperature does drop, the heart rate drops, respiratory rate drops, and sleep spindles, the waves inside of our brain during this phase, are much more prevalent. And sleep spindles are brief, powerful bursts of neuronal firings, okay? So there's a lot of research around this. And someone like Matthew Walker, Andrew Huberman's talked about this with Matthew Walker, as well as Stephen Lockley. They can dive deeper into this stuff. They're the best resources that you can use around sleep. The main point around sleep spindles is that they're really responsible for memory consolidation. So the more our body's using sleep spindles during deeper sleep, the better our memory is going to be. You might notice you have a bad memory when you drink pretty heavily. And the reason being is that it has a negative impact on sleep spindles. Alcohol, especially consumed at a very high rate. So if I go out and get absolutely plastered, and if I have 7 to 10 drinks, now that's gonna have a massive negative impact on my sleep spindles later on in my deeper sleep. And in turn, my memory is going to be shot. So when we first enter into deeper sleep, okay, so this is, let's say it's the first time we get into that deep sleep phase. It's gonna last about 25 minutes. But then as we go throughout the night, each time that we cycle back through into deeper sleep, that's gonna account for about 45% of our overall sleep time. And this takes us into the deepest non-REM sleep. So this becomes the deepest period of sleep where our brain uses what's known as delta waves. Delta waves are very long and a bit slower in comparison to the alpha waves or even sleep spindles. So during this phase, our body is basically non-existent. This is when we're really recovering. We're rebuilding muscle, we're rebuilding bone, we're improving our immune system, and it's really hard to awaken during this sleep period. This accounts for about 25% of our overall sleep, and this is also typically when people do tend to sleepwalk or even have nighttime terrors. The other interesting point here is that if you awaken during this phase, you're gonna be groggy mentally for about 60 minutes because your body's really trying to wake up and adapt from those really deep, long, slow delta waves and now get back into what we function with on a regular basis when we're awake. So this takes us into REM. This is when our body is going to be dreaming our absolute faces off. This is when our eyes are gonna be going all over the place. This is the time frame when we're getting raging boners and clitoral stimulation. We usually enter into REM sleep about 90 minutes after we first fall asleep, and we're gonna enter into that for about 10 total minutes. And then each time that we enter back into REM, that period is gonna get longer and longer and longer. And ideally, if you've optimized your sleep patterns, you're going to get about 25, maybe 30% of your night's sleep is gonna be coming from REM sleep. And during REM sleep, we're gonna be breathing a little bit more irregularly. Our brain waves are gonna be beta waves, which are the same brain waves that we see just as we're heading into sleep. It's gonna be about 20% more metabolic during REM sleep. And even typically when we're waking up in the morning, most of the time, if we have healthy sleep patterns, we probably will be waking up during an REM phase. So remember, each phase includes a very specific brainwave assigned to it. It also includes a pretty specific body response, and our eyes are going to be doing specific things during those sleep patterns. When we're in REM, we're gonna have rapid eye movement. When we're not in REM sleep, we're gonna see less and less eye movement as we get closer to the deepest non-REM sleep. So body tone, eye movement, brain waves, those are really how we can identify what sleep stage that we're in. So what do we need to be aware of so that we can actually optimize our sleep, so that we can go from having a horrible night's rest where we only get 5, 6, 6.5 hours of sleep to actually getting 8+ hours of really high quality sleep? So we know that each phase is going to be responsible for a specific task in recovery. And in all reality, sleep is just like our own body's recharging period when we start to run out of juice and we need to feel better over a long period of time. And if we decrease sleep time, this is going to lead to a massive degradation in our muscle protein synthesis. We're not going to be as swole. It can also have a negative effect on our cognition, so we're gonna make poor decisions. Our memory is gonna have a massive issue with how we're handling things on a regular basis. That means I'm going to forget things more frequently if I'm getting less sleep because my body is not using those sleep spindles to improve my overall memory facility. And so to have proper sleep preparation, we know that the first thing we should be doing is when we wake up in the morning and we prepare for that day, we should try our absolute best to get outside. If we can get outside and we can get sunlight on our eyeballs, that's going to stimulate our circadian rhythm. When we have a healthy circadian rhythm, our microbiota is going to be optimized and our daily cycle is going to be a little bit better, so that by the time we get fatigued, 12 to 16 hours later, now we're going to be ready for sleep, and we know that we can go through these specific habits to optimize that sleep so that we have the best recovery in each phase. So if we can establish that consistent sleep hygiene after waking up and going outside and getting sunlight every single day, and do it directly with the sunlight. Don't be behind glass. Okay, be outside and make sure that the sun rays are able to hit your eyeballs, and do that as the first key factor. That second key factor is to go to sleep at the same time as close as possible every single day. Get on a consistent schedule. And even when you're going to sleep, try to avoid any crazy mental stimulation. Try to avoid watching or consuming media. Try to avoid any crazy arguments before bed. Try to avoid anything that's really gonna give you a mental rise. You wanna try to really start to tone down your heart rate, start to really get prepared for that sleep schedule that's about to occur. The other key factor is, this is something that Stephen Lockley mentions pretty frequently inside of his book, is to avoid caffeine after lunch. Okay, so around 12, 1 o'clock, don't have caffeine for the rest of the day. If you do, that could have a negative impact on how you recover. And then finally, you can make sure that you can decrease the temperature of your actual house. Turn that heat down, okay? If you can get it down to around 64, 65 degrees Fahrenheit, or around 17 degrees Celsius, 18 degrees Celsius, you're gonna have a better night's rest. Your body temperature will be lower, okay? Your heart rate will start to go down, and your respiratory rate will also start to drop when you're preparing for sleep. That's gonna aid in that entire cycle. And while you're turning everything down, you can also dim your lights and avoid that blue light. And then finally, sleep monitors, like this sweet brand new Apple Watch, are getting pretty effective. They're not absolutely fantastic, but if you're using a consistent sleep monitor on a regular basis, you're gonna at least be able to see some consistency from day to day. And you're gonna be more in tune with how your body feels based off of what happened the previous night. I know that last night I couldn't sleep at all. And I know that this morning, while I'm filming this video, my memory is not firing on all cylinders because I got 5.5 hours of sleep compared to the typical 8 hours of sleep. So make sure you follow all those consistent tips, and you even use a sleep monitor. We're not even sponsored by Apple in this video. The best part about improving your sleep performance is that if you have a positive impact on your sleep cycles, and you establish that daily basis, that consistent schedule, and you get to sleep on time consistently, and that's gonna make you more efficient in your regular day. It's gonna make you have a better impact on other people around you as well. If you wanna learn more about sleep, make sure you check out this video here. If you want help with your overall strength training and sports performance, make sure you head over to peakstrength.app, where you can pick up our app that's gonna give you a personalized strength training program to optimize your overall performance. And you can get 7 free days when you sign up today. Because remember, freaks, if you guys wanna become a champion, you've always gotta cultivate your power. Peace.